Hello, everyone. So today I wanted to talk about the Voting Rights Act that the Supreme Court is currently considering if it is constitutional or not. Okay, so there were some hearings last week, some of which was very entertaining to hear, particularly Ketanji Brown Jackson argue that everybody should just trust her. Okay, that was her argument. So you guys should go and hear that. So what I want to do is I just kind of wanted to put it on your radar, make you guys aware of it. There's other channels out there that really, that really cover the legal aspect of this a lot better than I could. But it is very important, right? Because it determines, it's going to be determining the balance of future elections, right? Depending on which way the Supreme Court goes on this. So this is particularly section 2 of it, okay? And here's the thing: it has to do with representation in the House of Representatives, right? So in the Constitution, it basically says that each state has to send representatives to the Congress based on their population, right? But what it does not say, right, what the Constitution does not say is how the states should pick those representatives, right? It doesn't say how they should divide up the different districts within the state. Okay, so they leave that entirely up to the state. So each state can divide up its house districts however it wants. So what that means is that if you have states that Republicans have control of, then they're going to try and divide up those districts in such a way that it favors them. Okay, and if you have states that Democrats control, they're going to try and divide up those districts in a way that favors them. So it seems kind of fair. Like, red states are going to work in their favor, blue states are going to work in their favor. Purple states, there's going to be some issues there. Like, they're not, purple states are you're probably going to, like, whatever is in place from a point in time where one party had more control over another party is how it's going to stay, right? So there's not going to be any changes. Okay, so a lot of times this is referred to as gerrymandering, when they try to divide up these districts in such a way that it favors one party or the other party. Okay, so that's the gerrymandering that they refer to. A lot of times people say that it is unconstitutional. It's not unconstitutional because the Constitution doesn't say anything about it. It doesn't say how these districts should be divided up, okay? So it just leaves it up to the states. Now, you might say to yourself, how does that make any sense? Keep in mind that when the Constitution was written, the current political parties didn't exist, okay? So they had no idea how this was going to play out in the future. At the time, the only thing that they were aware of is that there was a conflict between states that had higher populations and states that had lower populations. And in order to deal with that, what they did is they created two houses, right? One which was basically dependent on the state's population, right? That's the House of Representatives. And then another house which gave all states equal representation, the Senate, right? Because each state gets to send 2 senators regardless of the state's size. Okay, so that's the issue that was being debated at the time. And this was the main issue. This was a major issue. If this issue could not have been resolved, the states would not have agreed to form a United States, right? They would have never have ratified the Constitution. Okay, so this was a major issue at the time. Things such as the Electoral College, right? The way that we elect presidents, again, it's the result of this conflict between states that have high populations and states that have low populations. Okay, so back then, that was the conflict that was in front of them. That's what they were trying to deal with. They didn't really foresee this issue within states, right, where you had 2 parties really fighting for power within a state that were kind of like, that were almost equal. They had not foreseen that at the time. Okay, so again, I'm just giving you guys some background here on why gerrymandering is constitutionally legal, right? Because there's nothing in the Constitution that says that you can't do it, right? It basically leaves it up to the states so that they can divide the districts however they want. And in states where Democrats control, they're gonna try to cut up the districts in such a way that they get Democrats elected. In states where you have Republicans in power, they're gonna try and divide up so that they get power. Now, historically, what has happened is that Democrats have been very aggressive with this. Okay, so they've been gerrymandering for a very long time, and they have pretty much maxed themselves out. Okay, because within each state, I mean, basically each person still gets one vote within each state, and you can't not give people that one vote. So Democrats have already drawn out the districts in the most advantageous way for them in the blue states. Republicans were basically behind the curve on this, right? They never had really caught up. So it's only now that Trump is in power and Trump is pushing Republicans to be more aggressive that Republicans are coming around to redistricting in such a way that is advantageous to them, where they can now catch up with the Democrats. Okay. Now, this is not what the Supreme Court case is about. I just needed to give you that information to let you guys know that both parties do this, right, in states that they control, and it is constitutionally legal. Okay, and the Supreme Court has historically avoided this issue, right, because it's a state issue. It's not a federal issue. The states can do whatever they want within their constitutions. Okay. Now, the Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, what that does, okay, this is a law that was passed back in the 60s, in states where, now remember, going back into the 60s, there was segregation issues, there was civil rights issues. So what they wanted to do is they wanted to make sure that black people in some of these southern states got representation. Okay, so what they did is that they came up and said if a state had a certain amount of black people in their population, they had the law, the Voting Rights Act required them, right, to carve out a separate district or separate districts so that the black people could get representation. That's how it came about. Okay. And pretty much everybody was in favor of it at the time, both Democrats and Republicans, because it seemed like it was necessary at the time. Okay, so that, again, this is the historical perspective here, because that's important to realizing how we got here. Okay, so now we are like 60 years later. That's really not an issue. Okay, that's because and one of the arguments that was made in front of the Supreme Court is that, hey, there's plenty of people that have been voted into Congress in areas where it has not been forced by the Voting Rights Act. All right, people, black people are still able to get themselves elected. Okay, so that's just not an issue because we don't have the racial divisions today that we had back in the 60s. Even though Democrats are seriously trying to push it and fan those flames and trying to reignite it because they feel that it can help them somehow politically. Okay, so that's the reality today, and the test of this to see if these racial divisions exist in our society or don't exist in society. For me, the test is that back in the 60s, right, if you went into the South, there was lots of businesses that would refuse to do money with black people, meaning they would refuse to accept their money. So there's no business today, no business that will do that. Okay, everybody is happy to take money from everybody. Okay, even from people that you don't like. Okay, even from enemies. Like I don't like Democrats. I'll still take their money. Okay. So that's the test for me as to whether racial divisions really exist or don't exist. Okay, you know, and for me, it's like, no, racial divisions do not exist today. Because people are more than happy to do business with one another, regardless of race. And for the other thing is that our society has really gotten really mixed. We've gotten to the point where there's lots of mixed couples, mixed children, that to the point where it's really hard to tell who's black and white in many cases. My father was actually a lot darker than I am. Okay, so it's really hard. Okay, and I'm not telling you guys that I'm black. I'm not doing that. But I'm saying that my father was actually much more darker than me. He might kind of look like Hispanic to you guys. And I'm not saying that he was Hispanic, but I'm just saying there's many parts of Europe, especially the southern parts of Europe, where you had like Muslim invasions, where you have lots of Europeans that are darker skin, right? If you look at the southern parts of Spain, Italy, Greece, okay, those were all areas that at one point or another were occupied by Africans, okay, or Middle Eastern people, okay. So you're gonna see darker people there. Okay. So anyway, that aside, the point here is that where the country is right now, it is really mixed, and unless you're intentionally race hustling, I mean, there's really not. We don't have a racial problem in the United States. Okay. So the argument that was made in front of the Supreme Court is that the Voting Rights Act, although it may have been useful at some point, is no longer useful, and that we should get rid of it because it is actually unconstitutional. Okay, so the unconstitutional aspect of this is that, in the 14th Amendment, and I think even in the 15th Amendment, it basically says that you're not supposed to divide people up by race or give one race basically or one ethnic group more rights over another ethnic group. And the Voting Rights Act does exactly that. Okay, so they're saying, listen, it's unconstitutional. It favors one group over another group, and we should get rid of it. Okay, so there's a really good chance that the Voting Rights Act is, Section 2 in particular, is going to be found unconstitutional. It has come up in front of the Supreme Court before. Okay, and I think Kavanaugh and Roberts basically went along with keeping it for a short while, and they basically made some statement to that effect that, hey, we'll keep it a little bit longer, but down the road we should look at it again. Well, it's come back around, all right, and this time they're looking at it, and some of the comments that they have made is indicating that it is time for it to go, because it does in fact favor one group of people over another group of people. Okay, so aside from that, what's happened here, like, how does it benefit us? Okay, this us meaning that this is primarily a gun channel, even though I cover lots of other subjects. The way it's being used now, again, given that the American population is really mixed, it's really being used as a reason or an excuse to carve out districts in favor of Democrats in states where those districts wouldn't exist. So what I'm saying here is that, again, the red states get to carve up their own districts, the blue states get to carve out their own districts. Well, what happens here is the Democrats are able to go into a red state and basically pick an area, right, where they think that usually an urban area or a city area, and they're like, okay, yeah, this type of area here it seems like more people are registered as Democrats. Well, if we can use this as an excuse or use race as an excuse to carve out a separate district here, we'll be able to get a Democrat elected, an extra House Democrat elected in this red state, where before we could not do that. Okay, so that's how Democrats are doing this. And the example that was brought up in front of the Supreme Court arguments is, hey, can Republicans go into a blue state and do the same thing? Can they pick an area and say, hey, there's a bunch of people in this area here that are registered as Republicans. Can we carve out a separate district here and use race as the excuse and try to get a Republican, another Republican House member? And the answer is no. The Republicans can't do it. Okay, so Republicans can't use race as the excuse to carve out extra districts in blue states, but Democrats are able to do it in the red states. So it's not fair. Okay, so I think the Supreme Court, the arguments that they made indicates that, hey, they see this, they recognize how it's being abused, and the indication is that, yeah, they're gonna declare it unconstitutional. And what it means is that a lot of these blue districts in the red states are going to disappear. Okay, so the red states again so there's two things going on here. The red states have been busy doing the redistricting just so that they can catch up with the blue states, right? Because again, the blue states have gerrymandered to the max. Okay, the red states have not. So now they're gerrymandering to try and catch up with the Democrats. And there's no way you could stop it, because again, each state is different. Like, I mean, if you try to like prevent it, I mean, you're just going to create more problems. So it just kind of makes sense that, hey, blue states, you carve up your districts however you want. Red states, you carve up your districts however you want, right? So the people within the state can kind of figure it out, right? So the red states are now in the process of trying to catching up with the blue states. So the Democrats are going to lose a bunch of seats just from that. But now, if the Supreme Court declares this unconstitutional, what's also going to happen is the Democrats are not going to be able to carve out additional districts in the red states based on this BS race excuse. So now they're going to lose even more seats in the red states. So this is going to definitely mean that there's going to be more Republicans going into the House of Representatives after the next election. Now, not guaranteed, because we don't know for sure how the Supreme Court is going to come down on this. It seems that they are leaning in favor of getting rid of this, but they might say that, hey, it might not be in time for the next election. They might phase it out. They might. First of all, they had the hearings now. The decision usually doesn't come out until next June, and that's pretty close to the November election. So if they come out in June with a decision, then the red states within their own legislative processes have to come up with the redistricting within that time before the November election. So they may not have enough time. Again, each state does its own thing within its own rules, but it might be a case that the Supreme Court might make a statement that, hey, you can't change it until after the election. So you could have something like that. But in the long run, this is definitely favoring Republicans and gun rights. Because it's no longer going to be forcing Republicans to carve out districts just to get Democrats elected in their states. Okay, so I know this is confusing. I did the best I could to explain it as somebody that's not a constitutional scholar. The place where you should go to get more details on this is a channel called the Four Boxes Diner. The host over there, his name is Mark Smith. He is a constitutional scholar. He's like the first person I go to for anything related to gun laws and constitutional gun rights and elections and stuff like that. Because not only is this guy a constitutional scholar, but he's somebody that speaks in front of the Federalist Society. He's somebody that like judges and high-level lawyers listen to. Okay, and also he's a big gun rights guy. So that's the guy that you should go and listen to. Okay, so the channel name is Four Boxes Diner. The host is Mark Smith. Okay, so that's where I get most of my legal information from. There's lots of channels out there that try to be legal experts. This guy actually, it's not that this guy is a legal expert. He's at a level that judges and lawyers listen to him when he talks. Okay, so that's why you should go to Mark Smith at the Four Boxes Diner. Okay, so again, the purpose of this video is just to kind of like bring it to your attention, let you guys know that, hey, this thing is coming up, and if it goes the way that it looks like it's going to go, it's going to mean that more Republicans are going to be elected to the House of Representatives in like deep, like in ruby red states. Okay, so these are going to be like most likely they're going to be very gun rights people, and these are the type of people that we want to be sending to the Congress. Okay, so drop some comments, let me know what you guys think, and I will talk to y'all soon.